Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another episode of the Sanity IT Project podcast. I partner with information technology professionals whose work-life balance has imploded and who want more fun, more confidence, more success, and more inner peace. I interview experts in the areas of health, wellness, spirituality, and mindfulness. The Sanity Project podcast is a platform for experts in this self-help and self-awareness community to share their wisdom, expertise, and solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Our guest today, John Fraser, will help them do that. John is an audio-visual tech and workshop logistics specialist and has a unique perspective how the best speakers in the world design and deliver their content in a way that creates an intimate impact and an optimal learning environment from the boardroom to the ballroom, whether in front of 5 people or 5,000 people. With over 20 years in the corporate and personal development in the live event industry, John works with some of the best in the public speaking world, like Brian Tracy, Harv Eker, and Callan Rush throughout North America, the UK, and Australia. So welcome, John.
It's really great to be here. Thank you, Joanne.
I'm glad that you are here. I know that you're going to help our listeners who are IT professionals where they go all the way up the chain to the what we call in the business the C-suite, the vice president, the president, the CFO, the CIO, the CTO, and they all have to deal with people. They all have to command a team, a group, put on presentations, and sometimes over the phone, and not lose their power with what I call in front of the room, which you so aptly do, but not just in front of the room, but on the phone. So I'll say sometimes on the phone is called in front of the mic, something like that. Mm-hmm. But how can you help these IT pros live a more successful life by learning how to retain their power in these presentations?
Yeah. Well, as you said, I've had a really unique perspective on this whole topic. I've probably worked over 300 public speaking workshop corporate seminars, but I get to sit at the back of the room and watch how these big name trainers, corporate CEOs, how they deliver their material from the back of the room. And I've basically become a sponge for this information of like how they present, how you can present powerfully, but also how you could actually lose your audience by just how you're commanding or not commanding your room. And this stuff translates so well, whether you're doing it over the phone, you're doing it virtually, you're doing it at someone else's corporate headquarters, or you're doing it in a venue where you've drawn these people to your own event, you're into your own environment. But there's certain little steps you can do to really rein the conversation back into where you want the information to go and what these people will get from you. And I think what I'd like to start with is to really let your audience know that the people they're speaking to, don't take this the wrong way, but they don't really care about you. No offense to anybody out there that might be listening, but what they want is for you to solve their problem. So you could be the best speaker in the world. You could be the most compelling. You could be the most generous, caring person in the world. But if you can't translate that information into a way that these people accept it, they don't care. If you can't solve the problem for them, they basically are just going to step away and they're going to find somebody out there that can. So when you create a strategy, when you practice the concept of presenting authentically, but also with what I call the captain's energy. It's also called wood energy. You can command a room. Really, what I'm expecting most of the people that are in this, in this realm they want to transfer information that's positive or something that their clients have asked for. So what you need to do is you need to clear away a lot of kind of what that white noise is that's distracting from these people from getting the information that you want to offer them.
How do you do that?
So there's first thing, the most important thing is know your audience. So you're not going to just kind of go in there and wing it. So find out who these people are. Find out what the best way they like to communicate. Maybe they're more of a phone person, or maybe they want to see your face over Skype or Adobe Connect or some sort of online web service. Find out what's the best environment to present to them in, so that they feel comfortable. They may feel better speaking, if they're in their office or in front of their team, or they might, prefer to speak to you one-on-one later in the evening or in the day. And then find out information about them. And one of the big pieces of this is communicate in the way that they understand. So I worked with this one trainer, and she says, is it ever okay to swear or use profanity? And a lot of people go, well, no, you should never use profanity. And actually, if your client speaks that way, like say you're going to speak to a group of truck drivers, use their language, communicate in a common language that they would use. And what this does is it creates an open link to them. Because what I perceived is that there's two real steps in creating this impact with your audience, this connection. And the two pieces are, you need to show them that you're an expert in your field, that you know what you're talking about. You have the credentials, you have the background. But the second piece is that you're showing them your humanity. So you might have heard stories about, people who came from wealth, and they've grown these huge businesses and they've been incredibly successful. And when they tell their story, we hear it and we go, well, I could never do that because I never came from wealth. What you want to do is, when you're translating your information, is show them that you're just like them. So find out information of what their background is. Where did they came from? Did they come from simplicity? Did they crawl their way up the corporate ladder to get there? And if you have a common story, if you have a similar upbringing, this is a great way to create the connection, but also create this line of humanity that they go, wow, this person came from where I came, and look at them now. I could do this too. And once they say, I can do this too, you've now opened them up to your information, that they go, okay, yeah, well, I'm going to use this person as a role model. And then as you're delivering this in the common language they use, and in using stories and using similar things they can connect with and they can understand, in that you're showing them your expertise, that through learning from whatever you're offering them, your program, product, or service, you were able to go from the simple life where they are right now to the extraordinary life that they want to accomplish through whatever reason they are working with you. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. I know research is important. Depending upon your venue, research is terribly important. I know that some of the big-time speakers in the National Speakers Association, who also teach or train whatever on how to be brilliant in front of the room, also advise making phone calls to some people who are going to be in their audience to, get a better idea and understanding of what their needs are, because usually they're not speaking to the audience when they book, let's just say, a public speaking event. When they book a gig, they're not speaking to the audience; they're speaking to whoever booked them. And
the gatekeeper.
Yeah, the gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper really doesn't care either. They're just looking to fill a blank, and hopefully it's as good as possible. So when we're in the office, for example, and we're hosting a call or standing in front of the room of the huge boardrooms, and you have a mix of business people, executives, and project managers and other IT pros, excuse me, that's another place where people can still I think they have an advantage. The host or the speaker or the presenter has an advantage there because they know most of these people.
Hmm.
They certainly know what they want, what these
Yep.
people want. So that can also work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and a big piece of that is knowing these people in your audience.
Yes.
Um, I was actually speaking to a corporate leader. I did some logistics work for him last week, and he was really nervous. He was speaking in front of 500 other CEOs, and he was really, really nervous. And I said, well, do you know your audience? And he goes, well, I know some of the people. And I said, well, before you go out on stage, before you go on stage, find those people in your audience and go have a conversation with them. Reconnect with them. Remember their names. So when you're on stage, you could use somebody's name that's there in the audience, and other people in the audience go, wow, they know them? That's
Sure.
great. They know us. But also another piece of that is that when you know people in your audience and you go and you speak to them beforehand, people just my feeling is, sometimes in the corporate world they can get a little bit of competitive and that sort of thing. But my understanding, especially when you're speaking in front of other people, they say it's one of the most nerve-wracking, fearful things that all of us feel is public speaking. But so when someone's sitting in your audience, they actually really want you to win. They want you to take this as a win. They actually want to support you. The worst feeling is to see somebody bombing from stage, and I think we can all innately relate to that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when you, like the worst feeling is to go on stage and just draw blank. Like I think we've all had that anxiety at some point, whether it was in elementary school where we had to do a book report, or doing some kind of debating or public speaking or any of that kind of thing. So when you connect with somebody in the audience before the event starts, or you could call somebody who's on, if you're doing a conference call somebody that you know is going to be in the room ahead of time, and they really want you to win. And if nothing else, what they're going to do is they're going to pump you up. They're going to say, you know what, I know you know what you're going to talk about, and so just get out there and share it with these people. These are all good people. They want you to win too. So you get that encouragement. So before you step on stage, people already want you to win, which is such a big, it's a big a boost to your confidence.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody needs that support system,
Mhm.
even if it's from new people that that you just introduced yourself prior to the event. I
Yeah.
remember I think my worst presentation was to a bunch of banking people. I participated in the event the day prior to my presentation, and the day after was my day. But what I didn't know until I was in the front of the room was that everybody had gone out and gotten drunk the night before.
Oh no.
Well, certainly I wasn't. I don't even remember being invited. That's neither here nor there. But they were all bitchy because they had to
Oh,
get up
word.
to be, to them it was work. And I
Mhm.
had a mixed room. I had employees plus their supervisors plus their supervisors, managers, way up to the top, to the biggest dude in the event, in the company. And everybody was angry, and it was not easy to
Mhm.
do.
So
Uh,
how did you rope them back in? Did you use a strategy to bring them back?
well, I tried. I tried humor, but I didn't try humor in the sense that I told jokes or anything because I don't do that. But I tried to get
Mhm.
everybody relaxed enough, and I had to slow down my presentation because I speak
Yeah. Yeah.
quickly. I,
Yeah.
I speak quickly and then I speak slowly in order to change the energy, but I had to go very slowly.
Mhm.
But there was many things that were wrong with the event. Apparently, they had problems with management, so the managers were there with their team employees,
Right.
and the team employees were terrified to ask a question because their bosses were sitting right behind them. So, I don't. I should have stuck to my motto of never speak in front of banks or insurance companies.
There can be a tough crowd for sure.
They are a
But
tough
it
crowd.
sounds like you did. It sounds like you did something that is definitely paramount. Is that you recognized something was going on in your audience and you adjust it. So a lot of this has to do with, it's called correct and continue.
Oh, good. Let's talk about that.
Correct and continue. So you can never ever plan for everything. You can plan for a lot, but there's always things that are going to come up. And correct and continue is you deal with what is going on in the moment. So you felt into your audience and you found out that they'd been out drinking the night before and a lot of them were hungover. They weren't listening intently. So you slowed down your material. You made that correction. You could have probably burned through all of it and none of it would have landed. None of it would have been comprehended. They might have even, people might have just walked out if they had become overwhelmed if you were just plowing right through. But you corrected because you felt into your audience and you went, okay, this is what is called for in this moment. And so you just let go of what your preconceived notions were about how things were going to unfold. You go, this is how they're unfolding now. So there's like the world of living in what I was happening, what I wish was happening, and what is happening.
Right.
And what is happening is that you need to slow down because these people aren't getting the material. It's not really landing for them. It's so important to be reading into your audience. That's why I find a live event where you have people in the room, it's a lot easier to see people. It's a lot easier to feel into it, or during a break, kind of chat with your staff or go chit-chat with people in your audience and kind of get a feel for what the room is at, where people are at with the information. It's a lot more difficult if you're doing it over the phone because you can't get that facial recognition part. You can basically try to get their tone but a big part is checking in with them. So I do a bit where I help people kind of create their curriculum. And one of the big pieces is that you create your content, the information that you want to give them. You give them an activity, and this activity could be anything. It could be writing something. It could be turning to a partner that they're sitting beside and discuss something. But you give them an activity that kind of locks in that information. So they get a kind of a physical feeling of what you're trying to get across. But the biggest piece to that is you do a debrief or a Q&A after that. So you're checking in with your audience. Say, hey, is there any questions? Is everybody on board with this? Is there anybody who doesn't understand what I'm saying? And then you can kind of do a full loop. You can go, okay, well, obviously I didn't explain this correctly. So, it might be a little bit more difficult in the audience you had because it sounds like a lot of the staff didn't want to speak out with their managers looking over their shoulders. But if you can get an audience where people are willing to put their hand up and saying, I don't quite get this, you can kind of close that loop on that piece of content that you know that everybody in the room gets it. And then you move on to your next piece. So that comes down to really like your curriculum design. And so this is another piece of how you can kind of ease your way into doing these presentations and not get overwhelmed and keep yourself on task, because I know that a lot of CEOs, if there's a power play, CEOs may try to get away from the person who's leading the presentation. And this is a great way of actually creating a structure where you're staying on target. And if someone tries to kind of sidetrack where you want to take your audience in delivering this content, you can pull them back because your content is written in this structure. And what I call this structure is the what, why, how method. So the what is giving whatever you're talking about a definition. So say we're talking to bankers and you're talking about long-term mortgages. So first you do, what is a long-term mortgage? And you would describe what a long-term mortgage was through using just a static definition, or you could define it by telling a story about it. But you give it a full definition. You give full weight to defining what this piece is. So that's the what is it. The second piece is the why. So why is this information really important for them to understand? So why is it important to understand what these mortgages are? Because your clients are going to come in and ask you a bunch of questions, and if you don't know why either asking these questions or you don't know how to define it properly, you're going to lose that client. So why should they listen to your information is the second piece. So what is it? Why is it important for them to understand? And the last piece is how. So how can they use this newfound information to grow their business, have the relationships they want, be be a better employer, be a better partner to their spouse, whatever the information is. So how can they use that? So if you remember the what, why, how method when you're creating your content, creating your conversation that you're having, whether it's a sales call or you're just giving you're just having a sales call or you're just giving information over the phone, it'll keep you in a structure that it's a lot more difficult for anyone to get you off topic. And really what you want to do is you want to write this out as a script so that you're following along. And this makes it a lot easier to do a phone call because you can have the script sitting right in front of you, and you can just follow along. And if you've written your script really well, what happens is the next question to their mind is your next piece of content.
You're
leading them down. You're leading them down the garden path to the final thing that you promised you're going to give them. And that's through writing a really good structure and having the script right there in front of you. And you can do the same thing when you're doing live presentation. Have the script printed out, have it on a little music stand. You can also use a comfort monitor, which is a TV set that sits in front of the stage that you're the only one that can see. And you can have your script roll by on that. And you could just read your script, and then when you know what you're going to say, you can disengage from that screen, walk over to one side, have a real intimate conversation with people, and then come back to your script if you need to. But it's about having that structure and knowing and designing it in a way that you take them from point A to point Z, and you're controlling the whole conversation.
There we go.
That make sense?
That makes absolute sense. Now, in all of your working life, I'm sure you've had some lessons or advice or opinions from yourself or other people, things that have stuck with you through here that you use as your mantra during the day in case you do get stuck in a new project that you go, oh God, I can't handle this. What has been that advice, that lesson?
Mm-hmm. The lesson would be always have a script. Don't try to. There's in the esoterical world. I do workshops for people that kind of they use esoterical language. They might do crystal healing. They may do some kind of more esoterical arts, and a lot of them call it the divine download. So what the divine download is, basically they wing it. They go out on stage and they start to just, as things come to them, they say them through the microphone, they say them through the webinar, they say them through whatever medium they're using. The problem with that is that they can get way off of topic themselves. They actually take themselves off the rail. And when people start getting bored, or people, as I said earlier, people don't care about you, they want to get the information that you are sharing. When you start to get off course, they go, well, I guess there's no value in this for me anymore. So I'm going to hang up the call, or I'm going to get off the webinar, or maybe it's time for me to leave your workshop and go on a bathroom break or take an early lunch. So having that script is so important. I can't say enough so's how important that is. But the second piece would be to practice. So you're practicing the script, whether it's even just a phone call. If you're phoning to try to get new clients, practice that script. If you're doing things that you're in front of people, like doing a webinar where they're seeing your face, or you're doing a live presentation, practice in front of the mirror. Watch yourself, how your body moves. A lot of us have unconscious tics that we do. Mine is saying and I've worked actually with a speaking coach trying to say a lot less. And for me, that's kind of just my normal pause, but I always say And so what I'm doing is working that out of my phrasing so that when people hear me speak, it sounds more like I know what I'm talking about, because I'm not saying So practice in front. See, I just did it again. Practice in front of a mirror. If you need to, record yourself. You can go back and you can watch these little things, but practice is so important. Just don't go on the phone and try to wing it, because you really have a limited amount of time to hold somebody's interest. You want to get in, you want to tell them what, they, either through your marketing or through previous conversations you've had with them, you figured out this is what they want, and you're the person that can actually give it to them. So get them to that place where they're going to say yes to you as quickly as possible, with as little rambling as possible. Start from the beginning. Take them through your process of your script that you've written out. Get them to that final thing where they're like, yes, I want to work with you further as quickly as possible. Practice, practice, practice. They say, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? It's practice, practice, practice.
Absolutely. Well, I want to make sure that our listeners have your email address. Your best email address is Zena V Services, and I'm going to spell it out. It's
Zen, though. It's Zen, specifically for Zen.
Yeah, I was going to spell it out for them.
Okay.
It's Zena, Zena, V as in Victoria, services at gmail.com. And John is also offering a free gift. The link will be on the website if you're watching it at joannevictoria.com/podcasts. Quote, optimal learning environment. Top 7 keys to creating an intimate impact in your workshop, seminar, and public speaking event. Mm-hmm. So there will be a link on the website. There will be a link on my Facebook fan page, the Sanity Project Podcast. And I want you all to watch that video, and you'll catch a surprise there somewhere that I'm not going to talk about any further. And I also want you to go to iTunes and give John a great written review. Also, you can give the podcast, the Sanity Project Podcast, the 5-star review, because I would appreciate it, and so would my guests, current guests and guests to come. And if you go to my website at askjoannevictoria.com, you can download a free copy of the True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. Well, thank you, John, for being here. I appreciate your conversation, because you came up with 2 full pages of notes for me to look at, and some great advice to people, whether they're in front of the room giving a talk, on the telephone giving a talk, giving a webinar, or handling an in-house meeting. Thanks, John, so much for being here. Have a great day. Bye.
You as well. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project Podcast. Please go to AskJoannevictoria.com and continue the conversation on her podcast page. And get a free copy of her book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoannevictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.